Hey, Creative Christian, Jeremy here with another Author 2.0 insight into the world of modern publishing. And that is actually the focus of this insight today, the publishing part of this magical modern world of writing, publishing, and marketing your passion project to connect it to people who need your story, study, and resource to find flourishing in their lives and to ignite faith in those around you. And what brought about this particular insight is something sort of tragic that I saw a few days ago that I was reminded is a thing in this modern publishing world that I kind of forgot about. Because my road has been both connected to the traditional side, the kind of corporate side, where you would traditionally submit a manuscript to a big publishing corporation, whether for-profit or non-profit, and an editor and then a publisher would accept that manuscript and then publish your book. And you would have on the spine the logo, right, of that company. And it might get on bookstores or, of course, get on Amazon and get press or reviews or whatever. So, of course, those companies, you got Crossway, I'm talking to Christian companies here, Crossway, Broadman and Holden, B&H, Zondervan, Thomas Nelson, IVP, David C. Cook, and a whole host of others, right? So that was that traditional route. Then there's the independent route, which is where I have been planted for 15 years, sort of coinciding with my freelance contract work with the traditional side. But all of my own works, or most of them, I should say, some of them are ghost-written books that were published by some of those big companies. Others are royalty contracts that were published with some smaller companies. But by and large, my work has been published through my company, Emmaus Way Media Group. And my fiction in particular is published by Emmaus Way Press. So, two major tracks in this modern publishing world, the traditional side and then the independent side. Well, in between that is this sort of slimy side, I'm going to say. I'm going to be blunt about that and very blunt about describing this middle that snares a whole bunch of people who want to be published, but I think especially Christians who have this heart desire and God-given desire to write something, a story, a study, a resource, a passion project. You are passionate about a subject, you have a heart for people, and you want to connect those people to that project because you love them, you love the Lord, you love the gospel, and you want to see them fall in love with Jesus and find the hope and the rescue and the recreation he offers. And you find that you have a way of communicating that through the written word, right? Through this story you've written or this resource, the study, and you want to put it in the market. You want to publish it. So what typically happens at this point for people like you and even me, because I didn't really have publishing connections or a way to publish through a company like others might, even like yourself. And so you're like, okay, how do I do this thing? How do I get this out into the world? How do I publish my book? And you do what I did, probably. You go onto the genie, the internet genie known as Google, and you type in, how do you publish a Christian book? And you get a whole bunch of responses. A good majority of those are going to be sponsored responses through Google AdWords, the keywords tied to a whole number of phrases people input into Google to figure out how to publish their Christian book. Those top responses are going to be they're going to be promoted by and sponsored by a number of companies that are going to charge you a number of dollars to fulfill your heart's desire to publish your book. Now, there's nothing wrong, per se, with a company offering services to people, authors like yourself, who want to edit, publish, market the book, okay? The thing. Nothing wrong with that. I myself have services I offer through Cross and Pen. My training, I have some coaching, so I'm not docking any of that per se. There are editors out there who are going to edit your book or proofread, cover designers who are charging their labor, right? And so there are companies who are sort of portals into the pieces you need to publish your book. But then there's the slimy side, and that's that language I used before, where there are these companies that charge exorbitant amounts of money to, in many ways, prey on people like you who have a passion and a passion project and a love for people and want to connect that passion project to people to help them, to guide them, to benefit them, to connect them to the heart of God. Christian companies, non-Christian companies, targeting Christians through these keywords, snagging them into a funnel that will convince them, or try to convince them, to spend thousands, 5, 10, upward of, I've seen $25,000 for these packages, cover design, advertising, sort of, editorial, layout, printing, to get your book published. I put published in air quotes, and I put these publishing companies in air quotes because in this modern world, you do not pay to be published, okay? Or maybe I'll put it this way. If you have to pay a company, a publishing company, they are not a publishing company. An actual publishing company pays you what's called an advance, which is like a sort of loan that doesn't need to be paid back, and you pay that down with your royalties, okay? When you sell books, you earn a percentage of that sale called a royalty, and if you sign with a traditional publishing company, you will get several $1,000s advanced to you, that kind of loan given to you, that you don't have to pay back except when you sell. And that percentage of your sale will then go to pay down that advance, okay? That's the way actual publishers work. They pay you to publish your book, not the other way around. Or if you're independent, you will pay up front, perhaps, to have someone design your cover or proofread your book, maybe lay it out in a design that you can then upload to Amazon or Barnes & Noble or Ingram Spark, print publishing or print service company. But you are the company, you are the publisher, and then you pay yourself when you sell a book, and you get to keep those sales for yourself then to sort of pay you back for those expenses, okay? That's the way both sides of the publishing track work in this modern publishing world. The middle, when you pay a publishing company for these services, you are going to what you're going to get with that payment usually is either a electronic book you can then to upload after spending way more money than you need to, or a garage full of thousands of books, paper books, printed, that you will have to then hand sell yourself. They're not going to sell them for you. They're not going to get you into Barnes & Noble. They're not going to get you into Amazon because you could do that yourself. Instead, these are service companies that are charging you way more than you need. And here's where this came from, okay? So I am launching or relaunching a series of books that some of my first books actually, that I published probably 10 years ago. And I finally finished the series, a trilogy called Faith Reimagined. It is a spiritual coming of age story that's meant to be a guide for people who are struggling with faith. And I relaunched these books on a platform called Kickstarter, where people can basically support you in your project, and you get funding for that project up front, and then you deliver rewards that people back. All right? You may have probably have backed some of these kinds of projects yourself. So maybe you're familiar, and it's just a way for creative people to receive funding for their project and do it in a creative way, in a fun way, to give back to passionate readers and reach new readers who could then enjoy your story or benefit from your story or other resource publishing project. Well, I went looking for others who might be doing what I was doing to connect with them, to support them, like others were of my own project. And I found one other Christian project of this person who had been wrapped up in the human trafficking world. Sound like a tragic story. And this Christian wanted to share their story in a fictional way to encourage people and to sort of bring a light to bear in a very Christian justice, social justice oriented way to the tragedy of human trafficking. The thing is that this person signed with one of those Christian publishers. In this Kickstarter, they explained that they had a Christian publisher lined up, but they had to raise $4,000, okay, in order to publish this book. Which is why they came to Kickstarter, to sort of raise this money that they had either paid at the front end or were going to pay this Christian publisher to get published. That is tragic. And unfortunately, it's that I've seen that replicated so many times. It's really one of the inspirations behind and motivations for me to launch Cross and Pen, and this service for people like you to find the training they need to do what I've done, to publish on their own. Because if I can do it, if this bozo can do it, anyone can do it, okay? And so I want to help people like you to avoid what this person has gotten wrapped up in. I knew a guy, a friend of mine, actually a mentor, a ministry mentor of mine 15 years ago or so, who did something very similar. He paid $6,000 to this company to design a book, to print the book. And what he had at the end of the day was a garage full or a basement full of 2,000 paperback books of his novella that he was then tasked with selling on his own. He had a weblog at the time and was sort of well known in some circles, and so he was able to sell books out of his home through his website, probably a few hundred, maybe 200, and was able to pay down, a few $100 or a few thousand, maybe $1,000 from that $6,000. And he had $5,000 left over that was just sunk into these books, literally rotting in his basement. He was convinced that this would be sort of part of his retirement fund. As a pastor who was looking at retiring, and he had this, actually I think it was a friend who started this publishing company for people who wanted to pay him $6,000 to print and publish 2,000 books for him to then sell on his own. He thought he would have advertising backing. He thought he would get into bookstores. Little did he know that they were just a print company, really. They were not a publishing company. They were a print company. And so many people fall into that trap. And so the point of this insight for you is to understand the modern publishing landscape. You got the traditional side going with a company who's going to pay you in advance to publish your book. Most likely that track is not going to happen unless you have a big following, a big platform, or have a very unique spin or have connections that a company would want to leverage to publish your book, okay? Most of you are going to be like me, the independent side. where you are empowered and have the ability to publish your book on your own as an individual and as a company yourself. And you get to benefit from all of the blessings of being able to do that, not only in a financial sense, receiving directly the payments for those sales, but also the relationships you get to develop with readers who find empowerment and escape and thrill and insight and guidance from your book. So don't go that middle slimy route where you are paying others, especially exorbitant amounts of money, to a company to publish or really print your book. Instead, find the help or the insight or the guidance from others who can help you do what I've done and thousands of other people have done, and publish your book on your own independently as an independent creative. You can find some of that help here at Cross and Pen, the training at my everything page, crossandpen.com/everything. Or if you'd like more one-on-one coaching where I might be able to help you with your writing, I've also done some editorial coaching and proofreading coaching from time to time. Not so much. I've partnered with some big publishers on their own author projects for that. And for people like you, I charge a fraction of the cost. And if you would like some of that guidance, you can go to crossandpen.com/coaching, where we can talk about partnering in a way that will help your writing to help you publish on your own, that will avoid the financial trap of these other slimy publisher corporations that you will find through Google and elsewhere that I would encourage you to avoid like the plague. So that's my insight today for the publishing side of the modern publishing world that empowers you to ignite faith in your world. So go and do just that. Publishing on your own with the full permission and empowerment to do just that.